Hey guys, what's up? How's it going? I'm running my rototiller out here today, and this thing's awesome. I've hardly ever used a rototiller. I'm just borrowing this one from my dad. I'm a bit too cheap yet to get my own, but it saved me so much work. It's ridiculous. Well, I'm talking about rototillers today in case you haven't figured out. Rototillers can be a really awesome aid to your gardening, but they can also be a negative. They can also hurt your gardening. They can hurt your soil if you use them wrong, if you use them too much. So let's talk about the pros and cons to rototillers, what you can go wrong with, how they can hurt your garden, and how they can help. So first off the bat, for a lot of people, a rototiller really is overkill. I mean, most people who are working just in raised beds in their backyard, you really don't need a rototiller. You can do really quite a lot with just basic hand tools, which is all I've almost ever used, really. It's just a hoe, a shovel, a rake. And I've got a little over a third of an acre garden out here that I work. So you can do quite a bit without one, and sometimes they are overkill. Rototillers can be hard on your back and hard on your shoulders because they tend to jerk and lurch and shake around as you're running them. And I know my dad doesn't like running his rototiller here, the one I'm borrowing, because it's hard on his shoulders. It hurts his shoulders, his elbows, his wrists, just because it's a lot of vibrating and it tends to yank you and shuck you around when you're driving it. So that's one of the cons, one of the downsides to the rototiller. You can work around that somewhat by getting a smaller rototiller, a smaller, lighter weight type of a rototiller, something like the Mantis. If you're not familiar with it, look it up, the Mantis tiller or Mantis rototiller. It's just a really small, lightweight rototiller with a small, lightweight engine and very narrow, thin spokes on the bottom that spin. So it doesn't have a lot of traction and tilling power because it's not real wide, but it doesn't yank real hard either. So for something smaller, something like the Mantis tillers, which is just very small, lightweight, and because they're small and lightweight, they don't yank you and they don't shuck you around. They don't give you a beating like some of the bigger ones do. So if you're an older person, if you got some shoulder issues, you maybe got some back issues, you can look into a smaller sized rototiller. It'll take a little longer for running in your garden than a big one, but it can save your back. Rototillers are mainly used for, as the name implies, for tilling. Tilling is light duty, cultivating, turning of the soil, mixing of the soil, and that kind of coincides with a little weeding too. Tilling usually takes care of your weeds. You can use it as a lightweight, fast weeding technique, or you can go slow and take your time and use it to tear up sod and established weeds, which is mainly what I use it for. Tearing up sod's a lot of work. I can do it so much faster with the rototiller. I can till up sod pretty quick with this thing. That's mainly what I use it for. This year, I'm using it more for weeding, more in between my rows, like right here. I mean, weeding in between my hyssop, and I got some mints here. I've got my thyme, my chamomile beds here, and I weed around them and in between them, just to keep the weeds at bay. Usually I just use my hoe for that. The rototiller is quicker at it, and I'm having a hard time getting to things. I've stretched myself so thin this year. I've really got to find some ways to pick up a little speed on my weeding mainly, which is why I borrowed my dad's rototiller that he doesn't like anymore, and I'm using that to do a lot of my weeding with and my early garden bed prep. The big problem with rototillers, other than they can be a little hard on you, they can beat you up a little bit, is you can till down quite deeply and you can end up losing your topsoil. A lot of people's topsoil is only about 3 to 6 inches deep before you start losing the black organic matter in the soil. With this tiller, I mean, I can till all the way up to here if I want to, which is a good foot or a little over a foot deep. Let's see, that would be, yeah, that's like 14 inches deep if I really wanted to go that deep, and I can do that, but I'm mixing all of my great topsoil in with the bottom soil, mixing it all up and diluting my topsoil. So that's a negative. However, if you're trying to really build up and add to your topsoil, if you've got, like I had out here when I first started, heavy silt and clay, which just cements together, or excuse me, heavy sand and clay, which just cements together so bad, I put a ton of organic matter in the soil, and it's about 7-8 inches down deep now. And this is turned into great garden soil. So if you've got bad soil, a rototiller can help you by tilling in organic matter down into the bad soil and create a good, healthy, organic filled soil, which is what I did here. Here's a great tip. If you got much mint, I grow a lot of mint here. I've got about 100 feet of mint over here, and then I've got a big row of peppermint down there. That stuff spreads like crazy, and it really gets out of hand. As much as I love plants that spread like weeds, and you don't really have to fertilize them or anything or take care of them, really. Just pick them now and then. As much as I love that, it gets unruly and out of control. And when it becomes unruly, it becomes more of a curse than a blessing. So I keep it in check with the rototiller here. I just yesterday ran down the sides of my mint here. This little 3-foot bed of mint spread 3 feet wide on each side since last year. So I just put it back where it belongs. And now I've got enough space between the mint and my onions so that the mint isn't hurting my onions now. You can have some issues with rototillers by over-tilling your soil. I mentioned diluting your topsoil. You're mixing the few inches of good organic dark topsoil in with the lower, lighter colored soils. Well, you can also pulverize your soil, which it's more of a long-term thing. And it's really kind of hard to do, but you can still do it. You pulverize your soil so much as it churns and beats and mixes, you're taking the sand particles and churning them, grinding them down more against each other and turning it down into more of a silt and turning the silt into more of a clay, which ultimately is bad for your soil. Most soils have a little too much clay to start with. Clay usually isn't really a thing you want to add to your soils. Most people are trying to figure out how to dilute the clay in their soils. So you can't over-till that way, and tilling kills the earthworms. It tends to chop them up. If I run down this whole row just kind of quick, I really probably won't kill the earthworms much at all. It'll hardly hurt any of them. But if I take my time and till this real good, I'm going to kill probably at least half or more of the worms that are in my garden here. And we want those worms because they produce the worm castings, which are broken down organic matter turned into organic humus, and it's insanely good for a healthy soil. So over-tilling is bad. Don't overdo it. Only do it when you have to. All right, now here's the point. Turn this around here. So you see the tines in here, the tines of the tiller. Well, in here I've got some straw and this is mainly straw that's left over from some manure, horse manure mixed with straw that I put out here in the garden this spring. Well, if you're tilling stuff like this, stringy stuff or big chunks of things like, like straw, manure, big chunky compost, stuff like that, it's a little harder on the tiller. It can do it still, but take it easy. Don't put it through too much at once. Do a little at a time. Go slow. Run across it quickly and then back and forth a few more times. Go this way and then cut across on an angle just to help break it down and till it in. A lot of the hay, which is there's a lot of hay in the manures here. The hay doesn't till in very well at all. This alfalfa hay is so stringy. Straw tills in a little better. I actually just, over here, I just tilled in a old pile of corn cobs from all the corn that I harvested last year. And the corn cobs, they busted up and tilled into the ground. They're fairly brittle. That didn't have a problem. But if you're tilling in a lot of heavy material into the soil, or if you're tilling up sod tends to plug it up. It's going to be a little harder on the tiller. Just take your time and go slow and don't force it. And watch if it starts to get plugged up in here. Keep an eye on it. If it gets plugged up, turn the thing off and just unplug it so it works again. You don't want to wear the thing out and cause it to overheat or crack something. Well, that's the pluses and minuses, the pros and cons of a rototiller. I hope you guys get out there and have a great time gardening and have some success of your own. I've got a heck of a lot of work to do out here yet, so I got to let you go on it. I'll see you later. Bye now.